Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third day of South by Southwest Eco. Very glad to see you here this morning. I'm Tracy Mann. I'm community engagement for South by Southwest Eco. Very pleased to present Chris Librie this morning, who is a Senior Director of Strategy and Communications for HP Corporate Affairs. Not going to give a long intro to Chris this morning, but I did want to make mention of the fact that, and this is something that most of the people in this room probably know, HP is a company with a long history of real environmental and sustainability bona fides that date back to the Second World War. And that's why we're particularly pleased to have a company, an organization, whose two founders are so intricately linked with environmental progress in the United States, and to hear about the latest iteration of this work and this dedication. And Chris, I'd like to welcome you.
Thanks, Tracy. And it's a pleasure to be here in Austin. I don't know if my mic is live. More volume. A little bit more volume? There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. And it's a pleasure to be here in Austin. I am Chris Librie. I'm the Senior Director of Strategy and Communications for HP Living Progress, which I'm going to tell you a lot more about over the next hour or so. I did think about whether there should be two Chris Libries here today, given the announcement on Monday. Maybe Chris Librie Incorporated and Chris Librie Enterprise. But I am here to represent the entirety of Hewlett-Packard, both of the two companies that were announced Monday, which will both share the heritage that Tracy so kindly mentioned. So I wanted to start this morning with a provocative question. And the question is, how many of you have a smartphone? Show of hands? Nearly everybody. Now, that's usually the kind of question that gets some either laughter or snickers. The snickers are usually because this guy came all the way from Silicon Valley, and he's asking us if we have a smartphone. Of course we have a smartphone. In fact, probably most of you have a smartphone and a tablet and a PC. I just hope they're not all on at the same time. So we're all living in an age of great data and data proliferation. In fact, more data is created in 12 hours than in all of human history up until the year 2003. Just think about that. It's incredible how much data we all create. All the Twitter feeds, all the Twitter chats, and I was just in one yesterday, Facebook, email, you name it, web search, it's all going on, it's all constant. But think also about the emerging middle class. In countries and areas like China and India and Africa, there are going to be more than 3 billion more middle class people by the year 2030. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing for our human and economic progress as a society. But it's also going to mean increasing data demands. This is a data center. I don't know how many of you have actually been inside a data center, but that's what one looks like. And I can tell you that the public cloud, the stuff that we all depend on for our data, already uses more energy than the country of Japan. And we expect that those needs to keep growing, obviously, to a point where they may not even be sustainable. Now, just 2 weeks ago in New York, the Clinton Global Initiative got together, and they had a discussion around the 3 or 4 most pressing issues for society. And one of those issues was energy poverty. So if you think about these two conflicting issues that are happening right now, increasing need for data, increasing strain on energy and our ability to produce it, it also then leads into an issue about space constraints. We've estimated that in order to meet these data needs, over the next 3 years or so, 8 to 10 million more new servers are going to be required. And the space for those servers will take up to 200 football fields, which laid end to end would be enough to cover the island of Manhattan. It's really not surprising at all that in a situation like that, Meg Whitman, HP's CEO, has said that business as usual is not sustainable. We need to change the paradigm. We need to change the way that we meet these data needs in order to be able to ensure that we can continue to drive economic and human progress around the world. And that's the background to HP Living Progress. HP Living Progress is our commitment to creating a better future for everyone through our actions and innovations. It's our renewed commitment as a company to our citizenship and our corporate responsibility. It's a bold statement, to be sure. So, what does it mean in practice? It means creating the most resource-efficient IT products and services through the most responsible value chain. What are resource-efficient IT products and services? Well, when I talk about resource-efficient, I mean not only energy, but also materials. I also mean space, because we've already seen that space is an issue, just the physical plant that's going to be required to meet the data needs of the future. And a responsible value chain to me means one that considers all the human and environmental impacts of producing and supplying those products and services. So what gives HP the license to do this? Well, first of all, we feel we need to balance the triple bottom line of human, economic, and environmental progress in everything we do. And when those things are in balance, it creates true living progress. A little bit about HP. We are the original Silicon Valley startup. This is a company that dates back to 1939. So we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. And the two companies that were announced on Monday combined equal $112 billion enterprise. So both of them, when separated, will both be Fortune 50 companies. In total, there are 300,000 employees, and we operate in over 170 countries around the world. But more importantly, HP technology powers 3 out of the world's top social media sites, 8 out of 10 of the world's internet sites, the most visited websites. We even power the Sundance Film Festival. And we're behind financial transactions, flight bookings. Basically, you can't use an ATM, you can't use a credit card, you can't make a trip without touching HP technology somewhere along the way. So we have an enormous responsibility. I don't say these things about HP at all to boast, really. It's to say that this company is huge, and we know that our impact is big, and we know that we have a great responsibility to deliver living progress in everything we do. We also have the heritage. This is a picture of David Packard, and David Packard and Bill Hewlett founded the company together. They were friends at Stanford University, and they founded the company famously in a garage in Palo Alto. And David said, the betterment of society is a job, not a job to be left to a few, it's a responsibility to be shared by all. And what I find amazing about that quote is David said that in 1947. So this is a company that had sustainability and responsibility at its core right from the beginning. It's also ingrained within the company. It's embedded in our organization. So that's why I'm really confident when we made an announcement like we did on Monday that these values will continue in both companies. Because sustainability is in our marketing, our R&D, our product supply chain. It's in our operations, so the buildings, the footprint of our company directly. And it's also even in functions like procurement, where we're buying trips and business travel and making contracts with suppliers. Sustainability organizations are in every part of HP. And so Living Progress will continue through both the new organizations that we're creating. Just to illustrate, and this is actually going to be my only chart in the presentation, so and this is coming from a data guy from an IT company, so this is all your data for the day. We were one of the first companies to publish our complete carbon footprint, which we did for the first time last year, and we've done a second round of that data in our latest Living Progress report. And like a lot of companies that rely on manufacturing, our footprint is comprised of this type of a shape, where operations, our buildings, the things that we do directly, are only 5% of our footprint. 95% of our impacts as a company are either in the supply chain or in the use of our products. And HP, like many companies, has set goals against our operations numerous times in the past, and we've achieved those goals to reduce our carbon footprint. And that makes sense, because it not only is the responsible thing to do, but it also helps to manage our business on a more cost-effective basis. But what we've done in the last year is we've complemented that goal around our operations with goals against the supply chain and also our products and solutions. In fact, HP is the only IT company with carbon reduction goals against every part of our value chain. And you can see those right here. And these are all ambitious goals. They're going to require us to operate outside of our normal footprint, because they're not all within our control. We're going to have to work with our supply chain partners in order to make them more efficient. We're going to have to work with our supply chain partners on designing products that are also more energy efficient. And we're going to also have to influence the practices and operations of some of our major customers in order to ensure that those efficiencies impact the carbon footprint. But what's important about this, by setting these goals, it set in motion a series of steps and actions on our part that are really going to drive change and innovation in terms of new products and new solutions. And I'm going to illustrate that for you shortly. But before I do that, what I really wanted to say is that what we've really begun to uncover is that even with our heritage for sustainability at HP, that it's been something of a hidden asset. It's something that we've been doing because it was the responsible thing to do, or it was about compliance. And what we've recognized recently, particularly through Meg's leadership and the turnaround of our business, is that it can be a competitive advantage. It can be a competitive differentiator. And that by meeting the needs of society, that by solving society's toughest challenges, like energy poverty, space issues in terms of IT, meeting data needs in a more efficient way, recognizing that business as usual is not sustainable, we can make HP a more competitive company in the long term. And that's the message, one of the key messages I want to give to you, that that's a way to differentiate your company. So let's talk about one example. I'm going to talk about HP Moonshot. Now, I showed you a picture earlier of data centers, and you can kind of remember what was there. There were kind of racks of boxes. Those are servers, right? And a server is about the size of, I guess, what you would remember as a sort of desktop PC, right? It's a chassis, and it's a large rectangular box. It's hard to get more excited about it than that. But this also is a server. This is Moonshot. This is the Moonshot server. It is, let's see, up to 89% more energy efficient. It's 80% more space efficient than a standard x86 server. So it's a quantum leap in terms of energy and space utilization for the same job. Now, how do we do that? This relies on ARM chips in terms of processing. And those are the same kinds of chips, back to those smartphones I asked you about at the beginning of the presentation. Those are the same kinds of chips that are in your smartphone. And the reason why we use them in the Moonshot server is because they're designed to run more efficiently, more cool. They're designed to operate with less intervention. And so this cartridge system is a complete replacement for an x86 server. What's cool about it is we can fit 45 of these in the same space as one of those chassis that you saw earlier. So just think about that. in terms of being able to reduce those 200 football fields that we talked about. So Moonshot is one great thing, and we've been driving the Moonshot architecture for over a year now. But we also announced earlier this year at HP Discover in Las Vegas is a development that's being led by our HP Labs, which, if Moonshot is a 1.5 times improvement in efficiency, what HP Labs are working on is a 4 times improvement in efficiency. So that's going to be absolutely critical to moving the bar in terms of energy efficiency as we go forward. So that's just an example of what we're doing with technology. And speaking of technology, we seem to have lost our slides. I want to get us out of the data center, because I know you guys didn't come here to spend the morning talking about data centers. So I'm going to change tack a little bit and move us, hopefully, to the tropical rainforest. How's that for a teaser? Well, I'm going to talk about it anyway while they're setting this up. So let's in the immortal words of John Cleese, and now for something completely different. We're going to talk about the rainforest and an exciting collaboration between HP and Conservation International. I don't know if you guys have thought much about the rainforest, but the rainforest is actually totally critical to human society. It provides the oxygen that we need to breathe. It provides nearly a quarter of the pharmaceuticals that we all depend on. Nearly a quarter of mankind depends on the rainforest directly because they live in and around it. That's nearly 1.6 billion people. And yet, those rainforests around the world are all declining. Those habitats are declining. And CI has been highly involved in trying to track that and intervene. And that's where I want to start talking about what HP is doing on that front, because I think it's a great example of collaboration. So we're losing rainforests at a rate of roughly 5 hectares a year, which is actually equivalent to the size of the country of Spain, just to give you a little bit more of an alert for action there. And we continue to have issues. So let's see. If we think about what CI has been doing, CI has basically set up sites around the world where they're monitoring the rainforests from 3 different perspectives. One is climate data. So they're measuring the impact of climate change on the rainforest. The second is vegetation data. So they're actually looking at plants and species directly and monitoring which plants and species are under threat and which are being affected by land use. And the third thing they're doing is they're taking camera trap images, and that's why the slides are quite useful. Pictures of animals in the forest, okay? So they have these camera traps planted in different places in the forest so that they can take those pictures and determine whether the animals are increasing or decreasing in number. And that's really cool. But it also means that they're creating a lot of data. So in total, CI is creating about 3 terabytes worth of very complex, interrelated data in any one year. And so that's where HP really comes in. So what I was going to tell you is that when we started talking with CI about this, they were kind of, they could see the need for the data help from their perspective, and they could see the role that HP could play to help them. But actually, the skepticism was on our side. What does the rainforest have to do with HP? And in fact, my boss at the time questioned that a number of times when we came to her with this idea about this project. And so, so that was part of the issue that we had. So I can keep riffing on this project, but it really is much better with the pictures. Ah, that's too far ahead. Go back. Thank you. So let's see. We already heard about this. No, back. Wait a second. I've lost complete control here. I need to paste this myself. Can we back up? One more. Thank you. All right, there you go. That's the problem. Rainforests are in peril. I think we already established this. 40% of the Earth's oxygen, 25% of people, half of all the plants and animals on Earth. And I told you they're degrading at a rate of 5 million hectares a year. And we've already covered what do tropical rainforests have to do with HP, but this is the payoff. So here's a picture of two people, and actually that's my boss on the right, Gabby Zettelmeyer, and there she is in the rainforest in Costa Rica. So my boss, who was once maybe one of the more skeptical or questioning about our project, is certainly now one of the most enthusiastic. She's actually been out there in the field with, on the left is Dr. Jorge Ahumada, who's the head scientist for CI. And they're both harvesting pictures from the camera trap. So like I said, 17 sites in 16 countries, collecting massive amounts of data, 3 terabytes in total. What do you do with it? Well, you create a new system called HP Earth Insights. And we've done this in collaboration with CI. It's an early warning system, as I said, for threatened species. What used to take months, literally months, a team of scientists to analyze in terms of data now takes 1 or 2 people hours. And so we're able to generate insights that can be used to intervene in the rainforest to make changes to help these animals. Now we're tracking over 275 species in these different environments. And already we've determined that 14% of them are under greater threat than we'd ever thought, which is terrible, terrible news. But it's also a call to action. It's an opportunity for us to intervene. And so with CI, we're working with the ministries of the environment in these 16 countries to be able to create change. And that's why we call the project Earth Insights. So what have we delivered? I'm going to talk technology just for a couple of seconds. I mean, one thing is the Vertica analytics platform. Well, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Basically what it is, it's software. It's proprietary HP software. Think of it as an Excel spreadsheet on steroids, okay? So what it's doing, it's taking those 3 terabytes of interrelated data and it's combining them and analyzing them from lots of different perspectives. What you need to be able to do, if you're taking camera trap images, you don't know whether the animals are increasing or decreasing in number unless you run a number of simulations. And maybe some of you are more familiar than me with Monte Carlo simulations. And that's basically what Vertica Analytics platform is doing in real time. Second thing is we set up an analytics system, basically a desktop that the scientists can use to see the data in real time. And so I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. And then, of course, we've supplied them with all sorts of equipment from both HP companies, right? From PCs and tablets to servers and also service on the HP cloud. So that's an example of the desktop. And it's got a number of different layers to it, but you can see it's highly interactive. It enables the scientists to take a look at each site, drill into the site, actually look at each species that we're monitoring, and then see the trends in terms of the incidence of that species and which ones are trending upward or downward, and what kinds of factors are driving that. Is it land use? Is it climate? Is it all 3? So there's a lot of things going on in Earth Insights, which is available not only to CI, but actually to many of their partners. So there's a team network, TEAM is an acronym, and that group is looking at these data, and it includes people from the Smithsonian Institution and the London Zoological Society as well. Now we can get to the selfies. So this is This is a live picture, the ultimate animal selfie. This is a jaguar in Peru. And this animal is called an agile mangabe. And I'm really glad he's agile, or else how would he get around on the forest floor like that? And then we have two southern pig-tailed macaques. And I've always wanted to say pig-tailed macaques in a presentation. So, and they are from Malaysia. So you can see that this is a really cool project, not only in terms of its impact, but also in the way that it helps to dimensionalize what HP does. So we've been able to engage two of our senior leaders, the vice president who's in charge of Vertica, that software I mentioned, and also the vice president who's in charge of our enterprise services group, who did the analytics platform. And they're tremendously excited about this project because, as a company that, as I said, normally supports companies in the background, right? We're helping with flight bookings, financial transactions, all sorts of things that you're not even really aware of. This is a great way of dimensionalizing the excellent work that HP can do. And they love this project because it helps them tell that story more effectively and more compellingly. And that's really what Living Progress is trying to do. It's about connecting the business with the sustainability objectives. Through our partnership with Conservation International, we're also aware of Nature is Speaking, which is a new initiative that Conservation International are joining. And I encourage you guys to go and see a talk that's going to be led by Peter Seligman, CI's CEO, later this afternoon. And they're starting a conversation called Nature is Speaking. And it's all about giving voice to nature. And you can see who some of the voices are. They're quite impressive. I think the choice of Robert Redford for the redwood was really inspired. But they're all great. They're all great speakers. They're all great environmentalists. And they've really started this conversation going. And HP's proud to be involved in this as well, because we're going to be sponsoring the hashtag Nature is Speaking, to the point where we will donate $1 for every use of the hashtag Nature is Speaking, up to $1 million. And you can use that hashtag, obviously, in Twitter, on Facebook, through any means of social media in order to be able to drive the message out. We really want to get people talking about this and help Conservation International make people realize how we need nature. Nature doesn't need us. That's really the theme behind Nature Speaking. But I'll let them talk to that great and compelling story a little bit better in their session. But speaking of starting a conversation, that's something else that we're trying to do with Living Progress. And some of you may be aware that while we've been here at South by Southwest Eco, we've had a number of conversations in the Living Progress Exchange. Thank you. And there we are, actually reminding us all of what the name of the exchange was. So we're all pointing to it. We had a number of conversations in the Living Progress Exchange, and it's been extremely important to us. We plan to do this on a regular basis in two different ways. So one way is online. And the online Living Progress Exchange, we ran the first of those in September, and it was a tremendous opportunity to get people involved around the world. We ran two sessions, one for Europe and Asia, and we ran another session for the Americas. And I can tell you, having been in both sessions, that there's nothing better than being up at 3 in the morning chatting online with folks in Europe and Asia. But it was tremendous. We had 500 people join us, and we had input and insights that really have helped us to start to shape our plans around Living Progress, because we don't pretend to have all the answers. It's only through collaboration and discussion with others that we're going to be able to make this into a true movement that's not just about HP, but about other companies as well. And so this week, we were very glad to be joined by Solar City, the Chicago Botanic Garden, Zipcar, and we also had CI, Adobe, Zappos. We had 2 representatives from the collaboration between the Audubon and Toyota, which is a great big business NGO collaboration like the one we have with CI. And we also had representative from the North Face. And we had terrific discussions. And so in order to summarize some of the things that, the themes that emerged there, I'd like to ask my friend James Morris from GlobeScan, who have been convening these discussions both online and live. I'd like to ask James to join us. James?
Good morning.
And James loves his work, by the way.
Yeah. As you can see, the discussions were hilarious. I don't know if this thing, is this thing on? Yes. So as Chris mentioned, we've, I suppose, to make a joke of it, this has been rather than my year of living dangerous, this has been my year of living progress. We started working on the Living Progress Exchange, the online exchange, earlier on this year, and this is something, these collaboration forums we've done with a number of organizations, including Unilever, BT have done a couple now in the UK, based out of the UK, and Bosch did one last year. And they're big. We have an online platform where we invite lots of people to come on. It's all text-based, so people can do it from the, speaking about technology, they can do it in their pajamas at home if they really want to. The great thing, I think, about the discussions that HP are having on Living Progress Exchange is carrying them on to different events that they're appearing at. We did this earlier on this year at Sustainable Brands in San Diego. I know it's going to happen at Sustainable Brands in London as well. So all these events that HP are attending, we're trying to carry on this conversation for Living Progress Exchange. And it's great to see, one, to be able to see some of the similar calls for action that are coming out from lots of different stakeholders in each of the events we're doing, whether it be online or face-to-face, but also to kind of be able to delve deeper into some of the issues that people are bringing up. So just to summarize, I think some of the kind of 3 big points that have come out already in our discussions, both online and in the face-to-face discussions that we've already had. One is the integration of sustainability into the core of the business. Now, this is nothing particularly new, but I think the kind of strength of the call for this to happen is getting, it's getting more audible. It's definitely increasing, and more so to stop sustainability just being an appendage to a company and being a program that could necessarily be cut if things got bad, to really understanding, as Chris mentioned earlier on, how sustainability can actually be a driver of growth and progress within an organization. And for that to happen, it has to sit at the heart, at the center of the business. And I think some of the calls that we've been hearing about are even going beyond that now, of talking about companies actually changing their purpose and actually thinking about how does sustainability fit within the core of their purpose. So rather than be a company that wants to be the best at something, give the greatest customer service, is actually what does it want to do in terms of being a citizen of the world? How does sustainability factor into its purpose of being, rather than just making money? And those discussions have kind of manifested themselves in ways like thinking about different business models. How do companies start to think about, rather than just producing products, start thinking about services? Things like, moving into circular economic thinking, for example, have all been some of the calls that have been coming out, not only from the NGOs, the academics, and non-business people that have been in the exchange, but also from businesses themselves that are realizing that this shift is happening. We better get on the train, because otherwise we're going to get left behind. And I think it was interesting, one of the points that came out yesterday, and I'll let Chris kind of speak to this as well, is that the changing purpose and the changing business models is happening both at established companies, 75-year-old HP, for example, but also new companies who are born with this purpose. We had Zipcar on the panel yesterday, and they're kind of they're born this way. The mission is to enable simple and responsible urban living. It's not to be the best car sharing company in the world, or the one that most people join up to. It is to enable simple and responsible urban living. And that's something that new companies are born in, but something that older established companies are finding out perhaps when they face a bit of a challenge. I mean, Chris, I don't know if you want to briefly talk about how that's factored in, the turnaround at HP is kind of factored into Living Progress.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very clear that 3 years ago we were facing certainly a business in challenge and in transition. And we had a new leader in Meg Whitman who needed to turn that business around. And she said it wasn't going to happen overnight. It was going to take us probably 5 years really to get on the right platform. We're about 3 years into that. But part of what she really wanted to build around was what she calls founder DNA. And I showed you the picture of Dave Packard earlier talking about sustainability and corporate responsibility. And so that founder DNA is absolutely essential. It does a number of different things for us. As I said, putting sustainability at the front of innovation means that we're solving the world's toughest challenges, but we're also creating competitive advantage. Things like Moonshot that I showed you earlier, or the work that labs are doing on the next generation of Moonshot. Those are the things that are going to position HP for future growth. But almost as important as that is when you're moving through a transition, there's a lot of change going on. And in order to keep employees engaged, sustainability is an amazing way to keep people motivated around the values and what HP stands for as a company. And so it's been a tremendous opportunity for us to increase employee engagement, and we have data that shows that, even during some of the more challenging aspects of some of this turnaround period. And I know actually, in addition to Meg, our HR director, Tracy Keogh, is one of the biggest advocates of Living Progress because she knows that it's driving that engagement. So definitely, it's a great tool to help rejuvenate even a 75-year-old business.
Yeah. And we see that in a number of other companies out there. Unilever obviously trips off the tongue for a lot of people's when they're thinking of sustainable businesses now. But the same with Unilever. Paul Pullman did not start the Sustainable Living Plan just because it was the right thing to do. He started it because he felt that was the future of the company, and the only way the company would be sustainable in the long run, because they were going through challenges at the time. So this shift in the way that people are thinking about embedding sustainability into the business is important, and it's come out loud and clear in the discussion so far. A second point is collaboration. Collaboration, we always talk about collaboration and how important it is, and it continues to be very important, and it's something we hear a lot in the work when we speak to our stakeholders. Despite the progress that a lot of companies are making, it's not good enough to do it on our own. And the calls for collaboration are still out there. The scaled progress that we need to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. We're not just talking about chipping away at them, we're talking about solving them, because we need to solve them quickly. It's going to take collaboration. And it's not just collaboration between companies and NGOs. That's fantastic, and it happens all the time. We've had just people on the panels in the last couple of days. Chris mentioned the National Audubon Society and Toyota have got a fantastic partnership going together. HP and CI, the Chicago Botanical Gardens, which was on yesterday, is partnering with a lot of organizations to deliver their core mission. But it's also, the calls are for increasingly for companies to look at synergies between their own operations, whether it's throughout the value chain to understand how they can collaborate together. Sustainability often is seen as, yes, a competitive advantage in the long run, but it's often done within the black box with our old walls that we'll do our own sustainability thing, this will be the greatest thing for us, and everybody will love us for it. That's not good enough anymore. Companies need to work together, particularly where they understand the synergies between companies. And that needs to happen within sectors as well. I remember being at a conference a while ago when there was somebody from Coca-Cola up talking about Coca-Cola and Pepsi have actually collaborated. The two companies that profess to hate each other do collaborate on issues where they see synergies throughout the value chain. Chris, I don't know if you want to talk briefly about HP and Dell. Again, two companies who you would think would be in a slugfest if they ever got together, actually collaborating on a project.
Yeah, one of the challenges that we were facing is the recycling of used electronic equipment, particularly in developing markets where the infrastructure is not in place to do that. And so working with other electronics manufacturers, including Dell, HP has set up a facility in Nairobi, Kenya, and it's actually sited in Kibera, which is one of the worst slums, actually, in Nairobi. And there's a good reason for that from a number of perspectives. One is that's where a lot of the waste, unfortunately, has been going. It's been burned in order to harvest the metals that are inside that material. And so by going right to the source of that issue, we've been able to not only stop that burning, we've been able to harvest those materials, and we've been able to create green jobs for people who are underprivileged. And so it's been a really great example of living progress, if you think about it, human, economic, and environmental progress all in one. But it would only have been possible by working with other companies, because we needed the critical mass of the electronic waste that was being created by multiple companies to make it work.
And finally, one of the discussion points in all the exchanges we've had both online and here is, and face-to-face, is how ICT can be an enabler. Of course, ICT companies have their own significant footprints, which Chris has talked a lot about this morning, and that's just an example of it. But it's how the power of ICT companies to be what somebody put in the online forum, both the brains and the bridge for other organizations to make progress on a human, economic, and environmental progress level. I think two parts of that. One is data. Chris has talked a lot about the data earlier on, the moonshot technology. There's a lot of progress being made on storing that data and making it more efficient. But what do you do with that data? The partnership between HP and CI is an important one, but there's also data that can go throughout the value chain of businesses, throughout their supply chain, to understand how to make those more efficient, how to make the impact of human health within supply chains, for example, for companies to understand that. Data can help to improve transparency of companies. A whole host of examples came out of the exchange of how data can help other companies make human progress and economic and environmental progress. One of the more interesting ones was the call, which goes back to the discussion we had earlier on about integrating sustainability in the core of the business, is the value that we put on natural capital and factoring externalities into the business. A very needed thing to happen, but tricky to do. And the value of data and data analytics to be able to solve that issue. There's already work being done on environmental profit and loss reports, but it needs to go further than that for us to really understand what impact we're having on the earth and to actually factor that into business success. And the power of data and ICT companies to be able to do that is pretty powerful, and that came out strongly in the exchange. And the second part of it is the bridge part of this, and how ICT companies can be the connector between a whole different raft of actors, and actually bring them together to help them manage their own footprint, deliver healthcare, enabling consumers to make smart choices about what they do, or even actually between machine-to-machine communications to just deliver smart choices to consumers and take the unsmart choices out of the marketplace. So there's a lot of discussions about how technology can actually just help us make that progress without having the bad things in the way. But I think there's, just to end on this, I think it's the connectivity that ICT can bring together can help to, what somebody put, kind of more humanize the ICT sector, not to focus too much on the technology side. It's great to be able to see all these gadgets, but it's what is the human outcomes of ICT and how can it develop, or even the animal outcomes, I suppose we've seen this morning, which I think was a clear thing that came out of the exchange of if we're talking about ICT as an enabler, what is the human face of that? And people were calling for that more and more. So the discussions are continuing to happen. We're going to have another online exchange next year, and these discussions are going to be popping up in different events as we go forward.
Thanks, James. And I guess the other thing that I take out of all these great discussions is that we've got a lot of work to do, and that's exciting. I think this is a great time, and as James said, IT is not just about technology. It's not just about gadgets. It's about making a difference in people's lives. I think in terms of continuing discussion, and we also take our presence out on Twitter. This is a picture of me and Nick Astor of Triple Pundit yesterday. We were doing a live Twitter chat, which was probably the fastest hour I've spent. Well, certainly the fastest hour I've spent online. I don't know what that means, but it was one of the fastest hour I've spent, period, in a long, long time, because it was incredibly stimulating, not only to get our word out, but also to hear back from people live and get questions live and be able to respond to those. And so this is more of what we want to try to do to generate more conversation around living progress. And I encourage you guys to go and take a look at not only the chat, but also our website and see what we've been doing. So building to summary, because I really do want to get a little bit of time for some questions here. I think we've seen how tough challenges require creative thinking, collaboration, and action. Living progress is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do by a company like HP. I think it's the right thing to do for all companies, in fact. Because we need to drive improvement in order to meet society's needs and to address the issues that we're facing. But more important than that, I think it's important to our continued sustainability, not only as a society, but also as a company. And oftentimes in the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit, we forget that profit piece. And I think part of what we're trying to do here is ensure the success of HP's turnaround, ensure our sustainability as an organization, because we continue to be a good actor in the world. And that'll be the case whether we're one company or two going forward. So with that, I do want to stop for questions. If you guys have questions, I do want to encourage people, though, please to use the question and answer microphone, because this session is being live streamed. So it's important for the question to be heard just as much as the answer. So James and I are going to stay here just to respond to any questions you might have. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to say there. First of all, we started looking at living progress, right? We have human, economic, and environmental progress. And I didn't talk about some of our collaborative programs in the other two areas, but we have those. So we have e-health centers in India, which are containerized health clinics that we drop into rural communities in India to help bring healthcare directly to people in need. And then those are connected. The HP angle on that is those are connected with each other and also with regional hospitals. We also, in the economic progress area, we encourage and we actually support entrepreneurial training. And that is actually a free online program called HP Life, which is available on the cloud. So when we're looking at our portfolio of programs, we didn't really have a program in the environmental space. So that was issue number one. So then we went out and we started talking to a number of great NGOs. And actually, I went on a little trip to DC and interviewed a bunch of them. And what really struck us right off the bat about CI was the data needs of their program. And the fact that that program was generating, as I said, 3 terabytes of data that needed to be processed. And it was really bogging them down. All right, so they were constantly looking in the rearview mirror. And they were creating great insights, but they were too late. And so we could see right away that we could accelerate that. But what I think was kind of really cool about it is, having first kind of got that conclusion, was then being able to take that back into HP and develop the collaborations internally. So, HP is a big company, so we needed to reach out to the Vertica team. We needed to reach out to the enterprise services team in order to set up the relationship with, the Vertica platform and to create the dashboard. We could easily give them money. We could easily give them servers and equipment and all sorts of stuff like that, but that's not sustainable. That's philanthropy. We wanted to create shared value. And then I think the third piece of that whole process was getting to know each other. And we talked about this a lot yesterday. When we talked collaborations in the exchange, we were talking about how openness, honesty, clarity about objectives between two partners, absolutely critical. And so, it was a great time, as we started to realize, well, we were not only fulfilling their objectives, but our own. And we were getting, folks like the heads of those two business divisions behind it. Does that help? Yeah? Sure. Next question.
Hello, my name is, I think, is this on?
I think so.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Lassner, and I'm an engineer in green building and renewable energy. My connection to the IT world is that my husband designs microprocessors for servers for IBM. And my question is a more technical question about, you're talking about 4 times more efficient servers and maybe beyond the moonshot.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious what kind of processors you're using. Are you continuing with ARM or going in a different direction?
It is a different direction, and it's being led by HP Labs, and it's called The Machine. They didn't ask me about any advice for the name. But yeah, it's called The Machine, and it relies on a whole host of new technologies. So now you're taking me a little out of my depth, but I think I can safely say it uses photonics instead of wires to transmit data between components. It relies on memristors, which are a completely different kind of flash memory, in order to be able to hold memory in a energy efficient way. And really will require a different architecture even for the apps and the software that are going to be run on the system. So it's a full-on program that's being led out of HP Labs. And Martin Fink, who's the senior vice president in charge of labs, announced this initiative at Discover in June. And there's a lot of information available about it online, or at least as much information as Martin's willing to share at this point. So.
Check, check.
Next question.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. My name is Fran Whitty, and I'm with the city of Irving, Texas. And my question actually has to do with a municipality dealing with all kinds of disposals. And we have a lot of disposed of electronics. So my question to you is, what is HP doing to help take the bull by the horns and have a take-back initiative, which I know you do, and in the design side of your electronics, use the take-back materials and cycle them into the process?
Yeah, great question. Actually, two questions, really, right? How do we accelerate take back, but then also how do we build that more into our products? Yeah. In terms of accelerating take back, we've done a lot over the years. I mean, HP has recycled over 3 billion tons of used electronic equipment, and now my mic is dead. And also, okay, and used electronic equipment and obviously printer cartridges. That's an important part of what we do. We have the first closed loop approach to printer cartridges. So we're actually taking old printer cartridges, regrinding them, turning them back into new ones. So every time you guys get a printer cartridge in a box with one of those mailer labels, please send it back because it'll be turned into a new one. The other thing we've done is we've worked with retail partners, particularly in the US, to be able to build up a better network of collection points. And so Office Depot is one where you can drop off used electronic equipment and also HP printer cartridges. Staples is another one. And these programs are agnostic in the sense that we'll take back any electronic equipment. We contract with Staples in particular to use recyclers that are R2 certified. And we've actually chosen recyclers that are near distribution centers for Staples in order even to reduce the carbon footprint of the program, right? So we're not transporting the materials too much. So I think on the take-back side, we're pretty solid. We have Planet Partners is another program we do globally that operates in many countries around the world. I think 70 some odd countries, 75, 78 countries. In terms of incorporating those materials, of course, we do that obviously with the printer cartridges, with the closed loop approach. I think on the production side, the PCs, tablets, et cetera, we'd love to use more recycled components. The issue is cost. And so we're really constantly battling a balance between the cost of goods and the available store of recycled material. So I think it's kind of one thing that's got to lead the other. And so we have been driving that. We have printers that contain recycled plastic. We have PCs that contain recycled plastic, but we'd love to use more. And so I think it's maybe back to collective action. How do we get more producers doing the same thing so that the price of recycled materials come down? So, cool. Any other questions? Very good. Well, I'd like to thank James for coming up on stage and summarizing the Living Progress Exchange. I'd like to thank you guys all for your attention. And I'd like to just say what a pleasure it's been to share HP Living Progress with all of you this morning. And I'd love to connect with you and hear more about your thoughts and insights about how we can take the program further in the future. Thank you.